Dear white people, my experience as a Black Latinx woman and student on my college campus is similar to that of many other Black students' experiences on their college campuses throughout history. I do not see professors that look like me, and I don't see many students that do either. I'm constantly in a world where I have to fight for my right to be here. In higher education and academia, professors tend to challenge students of color. Black women in particular are constantly challenged and graded more mercilessly by professors. Many professors give the narrative that if we work hard enough, we can be on an equal level playing field as our white counterparts. This is the lesson that we are often reminded of through systematic racism, and we are left with finding different ways to cope with the many inequalities we face throughout our daily lives. My colleagues and I have dealt with the pains of being a Black woman in higher education. A friend of mine has dealt with this very blatant form of racism when she was directly targeted by a professor. She had a biology assignment and spoke to her professor and teaching assistants several times a day to make sure that her work was excellent. After days of hard work, she did not receive the grade that she deserved. She went to office hours to speak to the professor about it, and she was told she did not get a higher grade, a grade that the professor admitted that she deserved, because she needed to be taught a lesson. This lesson that the professor was alluding to was, as a Black woman in an institution that did not accept her, she would have to work harder to be successful in life. She had to work harder to achieve her goals, not in her eyes, but in the eyes of a system that was built against her. As a psychology major, I often debate what I'm really learning. We learn theories and history through the eyes of our oppressor. The master narrative, a concept created by Gerald Wing Sue, is the idea that all aspects that make up our society have underlying dialogues of white supremacy, which further causes inequalities in education. The master narrative is clearly seen through the teachings of our white, cisgendered professors. Many give the impression that if you work hard enough, you can be equal as any other student, while disposing of the racial and socioeconomic hardships students face. Furthermore, denouncing the existence of racism in education. My university, Binghamton University, is a predominantly white institution with 56.6% of white students, 11.5% Hispanic students, and a mere 5.1% of Black students. Although my university has worked hard for inclusivity and diversity, we cannot forget the history of the city of Binghamton. The city of Binghamton was known to have exceptionally racist and oppressive ideals towards Black people. In the newspaper article, The Broom Republican, during the late 1800s, Black people were seen as menacing, savaging people that were a threat to the white community. If this does not show the racist history of Binghamton, consider this. During the 1920s, Binghamton was the New York State headquarters for the KKK. So what does this mean to me as a Black woman and student? The place that I'm supposed to feel safe and comfortable in is the very same place that has oppressive ideals and still today oppresses and discriminates against me on and off campus. The place that I'm supposed to call home as a student has harmed, abused, and exploited Black people. And just like my people before were oppressed and discriminated against, I'm going through the same, but in a very different environment. Let me tell you about an experience that often troubles me. When I am off campus, especially shopping, I see the racism ingrained within the town that I reside in. I was at a self-checkout at Walmart with my Ulta shopping bag. All I wanted to do was buy some sugar cookies and leave. And while I was on the phone with my mother, a white woman who worked there came up to me and accused me of stealing. To immediately assume that I was stealing is a direct reflection of what Black people previously and now currently go through in America. My perception of myself is that I'm simply a student on and off campus, but others may not see me that way. This is significant because when I walk outside, I don't have the luxury of just being a student. I'm seen as a threat, a Black threat in a town that protects whiteness and immediately rejects Blackness. Even though the city is no longer the headquarters for the KKK, nor is explicitly targeting Black people in its newspapers, the racism and discrimination still stays the same. It shows itself in the way that Binghamton University refuses to condemn violent acts of racism on campus and protects white students while threatening and undermining the safety of its Black students. As a Black and Latinx woman, I constantly have to deal with the fact that people see me as that angry, spicy Black person on campus and in the classrooms as well. I've had friends tell me that they were intimidated by me or too scared to approach me. I've even had a friend on this campus tell me that they didn't know if they could be my friend because they thought Black people only stuck together, or that I may have been ghetto or ratchet. I felt like that brown stain on a white shirt, that rotten egg that turned brown in a basket. And not because I saw myself that way, but because I stood out amongst my counterparts as a Black and Latinx woman. My first experience at my university where I felt unprotected was when I was a sophomore and a resident assistant for Binghamton University. My residents were saying the N-word several times to rap music. I have asked them multiple times to please stop because I was the only Black woman on my wing, as well as it made me extremely uncomfortable. After multiple recordings, reports, and interventions, nothing was done. I was even asked if I was willing to move. The administration I deal with is like many colleges in America. They do not understand the financial, social, and physical struggles students of color have to endure. As an educational opportunity program student, we constantly have to fight for our funding every year to keep the programs alive. Students like me would have not been able to go to college if it wasn't for programs like this. Black people, 18.8% according to the United States Census Bureau, are below the poverty line, which is the highest amount than any other race, therefore making higher education a luxury. Even a bachelor's degree is not enough. I have to drown myself in debt. There have been EOP alumni that have fought for their rights and spaces here on campus, always protesting for funding, financial aid, and equality in the classrooms as well. We take classes such as social construction of whiteness, which address capitalism and racism and white supremacy and exploitation of the working class, but make us pay hundreds for books that we need. Our education system is flawed and has become a capitalistic business opportunity. Higher education now has become just another obstacle that further hinders Black people from succeeding. If these experiences are not enough, let me tell you of another exhausting obstacle I go through as a Black woman in a predominantly white institution. I'm constantly seen as whitewashed or an Oreo because of the way that I carry myself and speak. People draw conclusions about me based off of if I'm black enough, and denounce my experience and try to categorize me in a box. Many white people cannot see beyond the perceptions of black people they see on social media and the news. And what they do not know is that we are intersectional beings, and we cannot be categorized by Western cognizance of race. They do not see that I'm an educated, black, Latinx woman, and just because I speak with poise and I speak with vernacular, it does not bring me closer to whiteness. Being educated and being white is not interchangeable. I have to say it again. Being educated and being white is not interchangeable. When I speak in a classroom and challenge others, I don't only speak for myself. I speak with passion and assertiveness for my ancestors who were beaten, abused, and even raped for me to be able to come and speak to you guys today. I will no longer silence myself to comfort white students. I actually want them to be uncomfortable because I want them to know that I am here and I'm here for good. I'm here to stay and I'm here to make a difference. My experiences as a black woman, although challenging, has shaped the way that I've seen others and the way that I see myself. I have learned what it is truly like to fight for an equitable experience, an experience that was never meant to be in my favor. As a black woman in higher education, I constantly have to fight against systems of white supremacy and racism. And as dehumanizing as it may be, I hope that anyone that looks like me knows that they are not alone. When I walk into a lecture hall and classroom and I don't see barely any students that look like me, it is not uncommon. I want everyone here to listen and remember this. Even though higher education and academic systems continue to hinder people of color's progress, I will not stop. And many other black and Latinx students that I go to school with will not stop to make sure that we will be successful in our higher education experience. We will not falter. However, we will rise like a phoenix from the ashes of our ancestors that have fought for my right to be able to have education and to not be segregated. We will be victorious. Sincerely, a proud, passionate, phenomenal Black Latinx woman and student.